That day on the subway, no one helped, but those silent stares would change his life forever. Lucas pushed back his soaked hoodie and stepped into the gym, rain dripping from the edge of his jacket. All he wanted was a hard workout and some quiet, but there was one thing he didn't know yet. At the front desk, the receptionist, Anna, greeted him with a half-smile. "Hey, Lucas. Late-night workout again, huh?" Lucas gave a small nod. "Yeah, work ran late." On her screen, a little note popped up by his name. Anna pretended not to read it, but Lucas caught that split-second hesitation in her eyes. He told himself he was imagining it, but he wasn't. He pushed open the locker room door. It was almost empty. One shower running in the back, a blond guy sitting on the bench, and another member scrolling on his phone in the corner. The smell of metal lockers, mixed with detergent and damp air. Lucas walked to his usual locker, number 27. He spun the lock, opened it, and placed his backpack inside. He carefully tucked his phone between his folded clothes. His passport and his residency card were in a small envelope. He slid that in too. He had to carry them sometimes straight from work, but there was one thing he didn't know yet. Right before closing the door, he paused. A strange feeling crawled up his spine. "Let it go," he whispered to himself. "This is a safe country." The click of the lock gave him a small sense of relief, but the invisible weight on his shoulders didn't really go away, and just then the door opened. The locker room door swung wider. A security guard stepped in, middle-aged in a Navy uniform. Lucas had seen him before his name tag read Stefan. They locked eyes. Stefan's gaze swept over Lucas from head to toe, staying a second too long. "Everything okay in here?" he asked, but it didn't sound like concern. It sounded like checking up. Lucas forced a brief smile. "Yeah, just here to work out." Stefan nodded, then turned to leave, scanning the bags on the floor, the locker numbers, every tiny detail as he went. When the phone rang, Lucas's life would change. Out on the floor, Lucas stared at his reflection in the mirror before stepping onto the treadmill, his beard trimmed short, his eyes tired. Just get through today, he thought. Maybe tomorrow will feel lighter. He started the treadmill. Speed, 5, then 6. He nudged the incline up a bit. He ran. He thought. He breathed. On the treadmill next to him, a young woman plugged in her headphones and opened the news on her phone. A banner flashed across the screen. Increasing security controls in the city, migrant communities under renewed scrutiny. Lucas caught a glimpse, turned his head away, but the words stuck in his mind like nails. Sentences that always began with, "People like you are the reason." He'd heard it too many times, but there was one thing he didn't know yet. Here's where everything starts to change. About 40 minutes later, drenched in sweat and slightly shaky, Lucas stepped off the treadmill. He reached for his water bottle. His hands trembled a little. Later that night, he'd lie on his bed, cover his face with his hands, pray, and his tears would soak the pillow. Sometimes, nights like this took him back to when he was a kid, praying under the sounds of distant explosions. Now he was in a spotless gym in a quiet European city, but the weight of being alone still pressed down on him, and in the security guard's eyes, there was that familiar fear. He headed back to the locker room to shower. On the way, his eyes landed on the small security monitor mounted behind the front desk. Black and white camera feeds showed the entrance, the gym floor, the locker room hallway. For a second, he saw a grainy image of himself walking past. He felt watched, not just looked at, watched. But there was one thing he didn't know yet. When he opened the locker room door, the atmosphere had shifted. The earlier calm was gone, replaced by a low, tense buzz. 3 men were talking in tight, harsh tones. When Lucas stepped inside, the noise dipped for just a moment. He walked toward his locker. Then his chest tightened. Locker Zaven and Twintig's door was cracked open. His pupils widened. "No," he whispered. He pulled the door open. The inside was a mess. His clothes were tossed everywhere. His backpack was flipped upside down. His phone was gone. The envelope was gone. His residency card, gone. And still, there was one thing he didn't know yet. Wait a second, don't miss this detail. Right then, the locker room door burst open. Stefan stepped in, the same security guard from earlier. Behind him were two more people, Marcus, the gym manager, and Daniel, a member Lucas recognized by face but barely knew by name. Stefan's stare locked onto Lucas. "This your locker?" he asked, pointing to number 27. Lucas's throat went dry. "Yeah, but someone went through my stuff. My things are." Stefan cut him off. "Interesting, because we just got a report of a missing wallet and the security cameras show you opening this locker." Lucas's heart pounded in his ears. "Of course they do. It's my locker. But somebody—" Marcus stepped forward, voice low and managerial. "Let's all stay calm. Some of our members don't feel safe lately. There have been a few recent incidents. And well, there are some concerns we can't ignore. You haven't even seen the biggest twist yet." Daniel crossed his arms and took a step closer, his expression twisted with anger and something uglier. "Look," he said, "nobody wants to say this stuff out loud, so I'll say it. It's always the same type of people. People like you. Because of people like you, this place doesn't feel safe anymore. We've been members here for years, never had any issues. Then suddenly we've got guys who carry passports, look nervous all the time, always rushing around." The longer he talked, the more Lucas's ears rang. "People like you are the reason. This was the kind of injustice that could happen to any of us. And if it were you, what would you do?" Lucas drew in a deep breath. He clenched and unclenched his fists. When he spoke, his voice shook, but not from weakness. It was the fragile edge of a heart trying to defend its dignity. "I carry my passport because sometimes we get stopped," he said. "I go to work. I come here to work out. I haven't stolen anything. My locker's been broken into. Shouldn't that be the first thing we look at?" The vulnerability in his voice was the cry of a heart trying to protect its identity. But in the security guard's eyes, there was that flicker of fear. Stefan shook his head slowly. He only had 10 minutes or everything was going to fall apart. "First, you answer our questions," Stefan said. "Why was your locker open? Why do the cameras show you hanging around this area more than once?" Lucas's mind rewound the night, his hesitation before locking the door, that uneasy feeling, the quick glance at the security monitor, and then a knock at the door. Here's where everything really starts to change. The door opened again. A woman walked in, gym bag in hand. Young, curly, dark hair, olive skin. Lucas had seen her around the gym a few times. Her name was Elisa. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene. "What's going on?" she asked. "Ma'am, please step outside," Stefan said sharply. "This is a private matter." But Elisa's gaze had already landed on Lucas's open locker and his clothes scattered across the floor. Is this your locker?" she asked Lucas. Lucas nodded. "Yeah, someone went through my stuff. Now they're accusing me." A brief battle flashed across Elisa's face, hesitation, then resolve. She turned to Stefan. "I heard something at the front desk," she said. "Something about the cameras. Who's been looking at the footage tonight?" Stefan's jaw tightened. "That's none of your concern." But the most shocking part hadn't even happened yet. Inside Lucas, a storm raged. Rage, shame, the sting of being singled out yet again, and his faith, telling him to hold on, to be patient, to stand up without becoming what they thought he was. The weight of loneliness pressed on his shoulders, but there was still something he didn't know. Marcus tilted his head. "Lucas, I don't want anyone accusing you directly," he said, but his eyes had already said the word "but." Still, a missing wallet, recent complaints, and some members feeling uncomfortable. I have to take that seriously. Is a $some dollars. Daniel let out a dry laugh. "Yeah, let's take it seriously. or this place is gonna turn into a little ghetto soon. It's because of guys like you that things end up like this. Two impossible choices: stay quiet and keep the peace, or speak up and pay the price. Lucas felt his throat tighten. I like this place, he said quietly. This is my gym too. I pay to be here. I just want to be treated like a person. If you really have camera footage, then let's watch all of it. Not just me, everyone who walked by these lockers. Every answer should raise two new questions. And in the security guard's eyes, that fear was growing. Stefan hesitated. There was something uneasy in his expression now. Of course we'll check the footage, he said. But first we need to deal with a complaint. The wallet's owner is on his way. Just then, a voice called from reception. Stefan, the guy with the missing wallet is here. Security was closing in. You're not gonna believe what happens next. A stir ran through the hallway. A middle-aged man in a suit appeared at the door. His face was tight with anger, his hand lifting in a sharp gesture. Yeah, my wallet's missing, he said. I had it in my pocket, went to shower, came back, and it was gone. And they told me. His eyes locked on Lucas. They told me someone was seen hanging around these lockers. The implication in his tone weighed more than any actual word he used. That strong person you admire, the narrator might say, he was once this helpless too. Lucas took another breath. My locker was broken into too, he said. My phone, my documents, everything's gone. Search the whole locker room if you want, but treat everyone the same. Elisa stepped closer to him. Yeah, she added. I've been working out here for 2 weeks now, and every night when I leave, I see security checking the exact same 2 lockers. Why just those? All eyes turned to Stefan. His face flushed. Routine check, he muttered. Strange, Elisa said, because the 2 people who use those lockers, both of them are immigrants. Just a coincidence? What you're seeing now? It's still nothing. Marcus sighed. Okay, enough. We're all going to the security room, he said. We'll watch the footage together. Lucas's heart hammered. This wasn't just about a locker. It was about that invisible scale that weighed his worth every single day. His name, his skin, his beard, his faith. And there was still something he didn't know. The security room was cramped. 4 monitors on the wall showed different camera angles. Stefan sat down at the computer, scrubbing through timestamps. There, he said. That's Lucas opening the locker. On screen, Lucas appeared in grainy black and white, stepping into the locker room, opening locker 27, placing his bag, closing and locking it. Yeah, Lucas said. That's normal. Keep going. They skipped ahead. Other members came and went. Some changed, some just checked their hair in the mirror. Then a clear moment. Daniel walked past another row of lockers, slowed down at 27, and his hand lingered near the lock. It was quick, but not quick enough to miss. And then a knock at the door. You still haven't seen the biggest surprise. Stop, Elisa said. Go back a bit. Stefan rewound. There it was. Daniel's hand resting on Lucas's lock just a little too long. His head turned, scanning the room. Then he moved on. Everyone turned to look at Daniel. I was just checking the number, Daniel stammered. Just looking, that's all. For the first time, his voice held a tremor. A wave of anger surged through Lucas, but he held it back, keeping it from spilling out of his eyes. He thought of his faith, of everything it had taught him about justice, patience, and dignity. Keep going, Lucas said, his voice calm but firm. Let's watch all of it. Just when they thought it was over, the footage kept rolling. About 10 minutes later, another person appeared, the older janitor, pushing a cart. He walked through the hallway, then paused, bending down to pick something up from the floor, a small envelope. He turned it over in his hand, then walked toward the front desk. That might be your envelope, Elisa said quietly. Lucas felt his chest tighten. My residency card. They kept watching. A little later, Daniel appeared again, this time clearly holding a dark wallet as he walked out from the locker area toward the front desk. Stefan froze the frame. The room went silent. The voice on the phone would sound familiar, but... Lucas turned to Daniel. "Is that the missing wallet?" he asked. The man in the suit stared at the screen. "Yeah," he said slowly. "That's my wallet." Marcus let out a long breath. "Daniel, do you want to explain this?" Daniel's lips trembled. I just found it. I was gonna give it back. I was just messing around, okay? I got nervous, all right? This place is changing. People are changing. His words fell apart into confused noise. "You're not gonna believe this." Inside, one part of Lucas was screaming, yell, call him out, throw his words back at him. Another part, the one shaped by years of prayer, of swallowing humiliation, of choosing dignity over rage, whispered, "Justice first, anger second." This could happen to any of us. So if it were you, what would you do? Marcus broke the silence. "It's clear we were wrong about you, Lucas," he said. "Your locker was obviously messed with. Your envelope is at the front desk. And the wallet," he glanced at Daniel. "That's on him." Lucas locked eyes with Stefan. "This wasn't a misunderstanding," he said, voice steady. "You saw me as suspicious from the start, just because of who I am, my name, my skin, my beard, my faith. You said people like you. So who's going to answer for that?" The hurt in his eyes was the shout of a heart defending its identity, and in the security guard's eyes, that fear had turned into something else: shame. Stefan bit his lip. For a moment, another memory flashed in his mind. Years ago on the subway, a young Muslim kid being accused of something he didn't do. The crowd had gone quiet. Stefan had done nothing. He remembered that day too well. The reason he'd been so calm back then, it wasn't calmness, it was cowardice. He began, his voice dropping. "I did see you as suspicious, from the beginning, because, for years, we've been told to watch out, especially for people who look like you. What you've seen so far? Still not everything." Elisa stepped in. "This," she said, "this is exactly the problem, and this is exactly where things can change." "So what are you going to do now?" she asked, looking from Stefan to Marcus. "Admitting you were wrong is one thing, but what are you going to do about it? Because this isn't just Lucas's story. It's about whether people like us can feel safe in this place, really safe. Two choices again: bury it or pay the cost." Marcus slumped a little in his chair. "You're right," he said. "You're absolutely right." Even the man with the missing wallet lowered his eyes. I made assumptions too," he admitted. "The second they said someone was hanging around the lockers, I pictured." He didn't finish the sentence. "So what now?" Lucas asked. His voice was clearer now. "Tomorrow when I walk in here, is everyone going to look at me like a criminal? Or is someone going to stand up and say, 'We did him wrong'? Don't miss this detail." Marcus took a breath, then made a decision. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "I'm sending an email to every member. I'll tell them we're reviewing all our security policies. I'll say no member can ever be targeted because of their background, and that I take responsibility for what happened tonight. And Lucas, I want to apologize to you, officially. John Sti." Lucas felt a mess of emotions. An apology, yes, but the damage didn't just vanish with a sentence, and still, there was something he didn't know. "You still haven't seen the biggest surprise." Elisa turned to him. "I'm going to do something too," she said. "What?" Lucas asked. "I'm going to tell people what happened, not just tonight. All of it. The way people stay silent when they see this stuff. I'll write about it, post about it, talk about it. I'll ask, if it were you, what would you do? Maybe it's a small step, but silence is how this garbage grows. This kind of injustice could happen to any of us. If it were you, what would you do?" Lucas inhaled deeply. The weight on his shoulders hadn't disappeared, but something had shifted. He could leave this gym and never come back. That was one option. But that sense of justice inside him whispered a different path. He only had 10 minutes, or everything would fall apart. "Okay," he said. "I'll be back tomorrow, but not just to lift weights. I'll come back to talk." That night, at home, he was exhausted. He lay on his bed, covered his face with his hands, prayed. His tears soaked the pillow. "God," he whispered, "don't remember me for my anger. Remember me for the justice I tried to stand for." When the phone rang in the morning, his life would change. Early the next day, his phone buzzed. The name on the screen, Anna, from the front desk. Lucas hesitated, then answered. "Hey, it's Anna," she said, her voice nervous. "I couldn't sleep last night after everything that happened. I need to tell you something." "Okay," Lucas said cautiously. "After we closed, Stefan stayed and watched the security footage again, and he remembered something from years ago, a subway incident, a woman who was attacked. He remembered a Muslim guy stepping in to defend her. Back then, he just thought some bearded guy standing next to a woman in a headscarf." Anna paused. "He realized last night that guy was you." When the door opened, what they saw, Lucas couldn't speak for a moment. "The calm you had that day," Anna continued, "wasn't because you didn't care. It was because you were fighting inside yourself, between fear, anger, and your faith." He finally saw that. "Stefan wants to talk," she said. "Really talk. Not as a guard, as someone who knows he messed up." This was his last chance. Lucas hung up and stared at the ceiling. That strong person you look up to, the narrator might say, he was once this helpless too. When they thought it was all over, he got dressed and headed out. Walking toward the subway, memories rushed back the first time he'd stood between someone vulnerable and a hostile crowd. The way everyone else had gone quiet. The way their silence had cut deeper than the insult itself. Minutes later, on quote, "That day on the subway, no one had helped, but those silent stares had changed him forever." Now, the small office at the gym would be his next test. When he walked back into the gym, Anna and Stefan were waiting. Marcus stood beside them. This time, Stefan didn't look away. He spoke directly to Lucas. "An apology doesn't cover what I did," he said. "I know that, but you taught me something last night. When I let my fear and bias move faster than my sense of justice, I don't just fail at my job, I fail as a human being." He took a breath. "If you're willing," he continued, "I don't want this to just be a story about how we wronged you. I want this to be the moment we start doing better. I want to start training here real workshops on racism, bias, how our assumptions hurt people. And if you'd be open to it, I'd like you to speak. Tell your story." There was a folder in Marcus's hand. "I've written a report for headquarters," he said. "This won't just disappear into some complaint file. We're using this to push for policy changes across all our locations, and if you want it, you can be part of that process." In that folder were words that could change everything. Lucas's eyes burned. Yesterday's pain was still real, but now there was also something else, meaning. "You're not going to believe this," he thought, "but sometimes the place that breaks you is the same place you rebuild your strength." Everyone now knew what really happened. But the real shock was Lucas's decision. Instead of weaponizing his anger, he chose to turn it into something else, a tool for change. "Okay," he said, "I'll talk. I'll share what happened. Because when we stay quiet, people like you are the reason is all anyone ever hears. But I want something different. I want to start hearing. Because of people like you, we changed." He ran. He shook. He feared. He kept going. People were watching. But this time, some of them were stepping forward to help. And he still didn't know one thing. Somewhere, someone listening to his story on a screen, on a subway, in a locker room, might remember his name at the exact moment it mattered most. When they saw it happening again. When the room went silent. And you, if you were standing there, watching all of this, what would you do?